You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again today. Just like any other day, we have another special guest on the show joining us. We're going to talk to Sam Thiara. He is a Chief Motivating Officer, and he's someone that does some amazing work. We're going to learn a lot about him. He does a lot of things with career development. He's an author. He also does things with personal development, storyteller, and traveler, does personal branding. He does everything. He does a lot of speaking to a lot of amazing people in his world, all the way from Canada. I just want to welcome you, Sam, and say, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing well, and thank you. And I look forward to the opportunity of sharing some of my insights and experiences with your audience.
I look forward to that as well. Tell us a little bit about what you do professionally, because you do a lot of amazing things. But when people find out all the things that you've been doing in Canada, I think it'll really inspire a lot of people.
Yeah. I think the best way for me to describe it is to use this process or this personal statement that I have for myself. And there are 5 things that guide and direct me in life: servant leadership, story sharing, activator igniter, champion enabler, and a community do-gooder. Those 5 things have enabled me to help individuals, teams, organizations, educational institutions, and nonprofits to their pinnacle best. But it's also enabled me to then become a speaker, a storyteller, a mentor and a coach, a writer and blogger, a person who's an entrepreneur, an educator, problem solver, and a community activator. So the idea is that the moment that I started focusing on who I am versus what I'm going to do, clarity emerged in my life. And that was my trajectory to all of these amazing areas that just aligned to who I am as an individual. And then I now work in that process of helping people realize their journey. And the way I guess I best describe it is that, oftentimes when I'm working with people, when I meet them, it's like they have a compass and they're trying to figure out their pathway. Instead, what I try to do is make them the needle, and that they then go in the direction that they need to go to have a fulfilled life.
And with that, you have a lot of amazing things that you've done, not just being an accomplished sought after speaker, but you also have done 2 TED Talks. And I want you to kind of tease the audience a little bit. What's some of the topics that you explored with TED Talk? And also we'll get into some other things later.
Yeah, so I've been fortunate with the opportunity to do 2 TEDx talks. The first one was on personal storytelling. In other words, I feel we all have a story. And the essence of the first TEDx I did was discovering the extraordinary in the ordinary. And what I mean by this is we live in the world that can seem ordinary, our routines, our everyday life, but embedded in the ordinary are these tremendously extraordinary experiences. And the way that I try to get people to discover the extraordinary in the ordinary and to build it as part of their personal story is a concept I came up with called CARPE, as in Carpe Diem, seize the day. But what CARPE stands for is curiosity, appreciation, reflection, perspectives, and experience. Those 5 things are the processes that I go through and that I've helped other people go through to discover that extraordinary in the ordinary. So curiosity is going through life with your eyes and mind open and stopping when something that should be obvious, you start thinking about it from a different perspective. And that's the appreciation, is you're appreciating it for more than what it is. Reflection is adding purpose and meaning, like going deeper. Curiosity stopped you, you've appreciated something or someone, reflecting on it adds purpose and meaning, and perspectives means we have our years of experience, our perspectives of the world, and we add more deeper purpose and meaning. But the last one is experience, cataloging it as a story. If you don't catalog your story as an experience, your story dies an untimely death. So that was the first TEDx I did, Discover the Extraordinary in the Ordinary. The second one was about activating the voice within to be louder than the noise around you. What I mean by this is we often see a common narrative. In preschool and early childhood development, a question is asked of us. What do you want to be when you grow up? Well, we pick these honorable positions. I want to be an astronaut, a teacher, a doctor, a police officer. And then slowly, as we get older, practicality sets in. And now we struggle to discover or understand what is it that I'm meant to be doing. So how do you activate the voice within to be louder than the noise around you? The noise is telling you you should do this, or the noise is telling you that practicality is this. But the voice within is this need to realize what you're really meant to be doing. And that's where I built the 5 core foundation piece, which is what are the 5 things that you are not willing to compromise in life and career that suddenly guides you with a foundation and a solid piece that's going to direct you in what you really should feel is a fulfilled life.
Once again, listen to I'm Refocused Radio, talking to Sound Thiara, and you also have a website, sound-thiara.com, and you have blogs on there that you do. You tell people about your story and your writing, and you also do coaching for people. And with your coaching, you focus on life and career coaching, to be specific. What was some of the experience that you've had with your clients as they discover, okay, this is my purpose, this is some of the things I can do to, realize my identity and understanding culture and so forth, so forth?
Yeah, with the coaching, the mentorship and coaching piece, oftentimes I find that with individuals, oftentimes they're on a pathway, but they're also seemingly lost. I think oftentimes they've taken a pathway that was the pathway of least resistance. The way I sort of describe it is, let's say somebody's in university, they do a first level finance course, and you know what? It was a relatively easy course. They somewhat enjoyed it. And then they say, I'm going to do more finance courses because it really came to me. Next thing you know, they've done a number of these finance courses. Maybe they take an internship or a co-op position working as a student in a bank, and starting to do some more of that financial and banking stuff. Well, upon graduation, you now have become an entry-level banker, let's say a frontline customer service representative. And 5 years later, 10 years later, and before you know it, you're in the bank and you've established yourself with these strong roots of being in a bank. But was that really the journey? And oftentimes when I meet with my clients and we start peeling away the onion skin of, tell me about the journey. Tell me about what, your journey is, and what is it that you do presently in your job? Tell me about what you enjoy. Tell me at the same time, what is it that you don't really enjoy? And we start, looking at the journey, and we start looking at, the individual. And I often call myself the difficult monk, because oftentimes when people come to me for coaching or insights on life or career, they come to me looking for the answers. But I call myself the difficult monk because the idea is that I'm not going to tell you what to do. There's enough people out there telling you what to do. Instead, what I do is I ask a lot of questions. I ask them, about their interests, their journey. What is it that if money was no object, what would you like to do? And, just asking a lot of these questions. And the realization is oftentimes these individuals, the answers lie within them. And they just need someone to be asking these questions to help pull it out. Now, is it as simple as that? Of course not. I mean, it takes a lot of thoughtful introspection and, really working with them. to vision this idea of the pathway and the journey. Working with individuals, though, is when I'm with them and we start from a point and then we see them progress along. It's so rewarding to see them start to hit those areas of what I call fulfillment of what they really would like to be doing. Now, sometimes what I mean fulfillment is it doesn't mean I'm there to just change their trajectory on life. And, they're going from, being an investment banker to all of a sudden being a canvas artist. That's not what it's about, but it's the realization that if you're in investment banking, what is it that you really enjoy and appreciate? And and that hopefully this is the place that you are meant to be. And if not, can we build it into the job? Can we build it a component outside of the job to complement what's in the job? Or, yeah, let's have a conversation. You've done this investment banking. Do we now move into a different direction and a place where you can now move forward? And we're not talking necessarily all of these massive drastic changes, but it can be, realignment that helps them get where they need to go.
And speaking of realignment, you also have an article on your blog that I happened to take a look at and found it very interesting. It was reflect, vision, move, time to flip the hourglass. And what I thought was very interesting was the part section where you talk about where we all can come to the realization where we need to care now more than ever. And what's cool is they use CARE as an acronym that stands for collaboration, adaptability, resilience, and empathy. Explain to the audience about that acronym and how you're trying to use it in that article.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've really sort of come out of this COVID induced, I'd call it coma almost. It's impacted every single person in this world. And, when I looked around, I'm looking at individuals, teams, organizations, nonprofits, and educational institutions. Everybody's been impacted by COVID. And when I looked at it, I was like, okay, so maybe there's something that I need to start promoting that's going to help us get out of this or move us in a certain direction. And I came up with this acronym of CARE, which, as you said, was collaboration, adaptability, resilience, and empathy. Because though to care applies to a whole spectrum, every single person, we need to care. Collaboration is this idea of we all have something to contribute, but we all have something to also need from each other. So we need to collaborate. Knowing what you hold and working with someone else who holds something that can complement, that's how we collaborate. Funny enough, earlier today, I had a conversation. I'm in Vancouver. I've got someone in Toronto. And collaboration, where we're now planning to do a workshop on mindfulness, self-care, and personal development because we both bring something. That's the collaboration piece. Adaptability is this idea that, people fear change, but don't fear change, embrace change. And through collaboration, we're able to be more adaptable. We're able to be better prepared to tackle things as they change. I mean, when COVID hit, I still remember having to teach my university class. In week 10, they just basically said, as of today, we're going to go online. I looked at it as an opportunity, not as a challenge, and I embraced it. And I really enjoyed being online teaching my classes. I still really enjoy being in person. But adaptability was this mindset of going in saying, okay, change is not something I'm going to fear. I'm going to embrace it. And collaboration enabled me to embrace adaptability because I felt supported. Resilience is this idea that we're in a marathon. We're not in this 100-meter dash. It's not over tomorrow, next week. We're in this. And it's a reminder that our life is a marathon and not made up of 100-meter dashes. There's going to be times where if as a marathon, There may be times that are flat and easier, and then there are times that may be more difficult, those hills. So building resilience means being prepared and going through and looking at life as a marathon. And the last one I think is really important, which is empathy, showing care and compassion to each other. We don't know what people are going through with mental health, with everyone has their own issues and challenges. We need to show more empathy towards each other, listen to each other, support each other. So that's where care, and by the acronym of care, it enables me to then reflect on my past and see where I've come from, to vision the future that I would like to go into, while I stand on the crack that I call the present. So it's building all of this in to help me move forward in life, and to not just help me forward in life, but to help others, to help teams and organizations. So care is this wonderful concept of collaboration, adaptability, resilience, and empathy that I think we need to embrace.
And there's a point that you said that kind of caught my attention, where when something happens, some task comes your way, instead of looking at it as a challenge, you can look at it as an opportunity. Mm-hmm. I think that's something that can be useful when we put into practice, because also in the blog you have like a series of quotes, and one of them was obstacles are the necessary bricks on the road to my success. And I think that ties hand in hand with the statement you said earlier about when something comes your way, be adaptable, be flexible, so that you look at it as an opportunity of growth versus you look at a challenge and you start kind of making those excuses why you can't adjust.
Oh yeah, and it is one of the quotes I live by, that we are going to embrace, or we're going to be facing these challenges, and challenges are all part of this process. And when I work with individuals or organizations, they're always in this deficit mindset of the challenges. Well, it won't work because of this or this. And my thing is, instead of a deficit focus, let's focus on asset focus. What is it that we have that we can build on and make it stronger? And it'll help individuals and teams and organizations if you go into this mindset to say, instead of fearing those challenges and obstacles, it is important to know what they are. But embedded in that are those opportunities to come to those solutions that, can help. And it's always been interesting, because especially when I work with a lot of young people as well, either when I'm teaching or when I'm mentoring and coaching the, 15 to 25-year-olds, it's not uncommon for them to come up and say, look, here's the problem. What do you think we should do to fix it? And my reply back to them is, well, what do you think would be a really great idea for us to do this? How would you solve this? And then they're like, well, and right or wrong, but I want them to start thinking about it from the standpoint of, instead of a problem, what's an opportunity? And all of this came about, this mindset of obstacles are the necessary bricks on a road to success, because I do recall there was a time when a student came to my office. He sat there and, it was telling me, what was going on. And it was always interesting, because he used the word problem 4 times in a short span, like the problem was this. And then he talked about something else in the problem. And I remember stopping him at one point and I said, you realize you've used the word problem 4 times, but what's your solution? And he sat there and he goes, oh. And that resulted in a blog post I wrote, which was change your word, change your world. Because by changing your words, you change your world, because you shift that mindset. And he even said, like, anytime I come across that I'm using the word problem, I start thinking about this and I start focusing that I need to know what the problem is, but I'm also going to start working towards a solution. So that's where I think it's really important from that sort of scope.
Yeah, it's almost comical how many people does it take to change a light bulb versus realize that, there's a problem there.
Yeah.
And not to switch gears too much, but this ties into the blog post and the whole theme that we're talking about right now. And especially when it comes to finding yourself and learning about the past and learning about culture and all that. You have a book that actually talks about all of this. You have a book called Lost and Found, Seeking the Past and Finding Myself. This is a true story about you, yourself. And it's a memoir about what you decided to do and some of the things you discovered.
Mhm. Yeah, it was, again, I go through life with, again, all of this wanting to realize and again, not settling on what's in front of me and accepting, and there's a lot of noise. So the easiest way for me to describe it is I'm a British born Canadian with parents from Fiji Islands and grandparents from India. And if you visibly look at me, I look like I'm from India, or that I have an Indian background, South Asian background. And it's not uncommon for people to say, to me, what part of India are you from? And I reply back, well, I was born in England and raised in Canada. Like, no, your parents, what part of India are they from? And I'm like, well, my parents come from Fiji Islands. And they look at me and they go, are you Indian? And I'm like, well, my ancestors and my grandparents come from India. And then other people would be like, well, you're not Indian, you're Canadian. So that was part of it. And then the other part of it is this idea that, my grandfather left India when he was 17, probably around 1905. He hopped on a ship in Calcutta, it sailed and stopped in Fiji. And that's where he got off and life started there. And my father was born there. My mom and dad got married in Fiji. They moved to England. I was born in England. We moved to Canada. But in all of this global perspective, we had lost our ties and our roots back to India because nobody knew where our grandfather's house was. We knew it was in this giant state of Punjab, and the district is Hoshiarpur, but that's a huge district. But nobody knew exactly where this village was. We knew what we thought was the name, the fact that it sat about 6 miles from this town in the district of Hoshiarpur. My dad's older brother had gone to the village many, many years ago, and he died many years ago before we were able to get the details of where this village was. So the idea was that when my uncle had passed away, he had a single photograph of the people from our village. And I was able to get a copy of this picture. So I've got this picture of these people from our village in India, some sparse information. And I thought to myself, I want to go on an adventure. I want to go on a quest to find our grandfather's house. So all I had was a faded photograph, very little information, and the fact that I've never been to India. So the easiest way for me to describe it is I'm a foreigner going to a land that shouldn't be foreign to me in search of a needle in a haystack and not even sure where this haystack was. What was interesting is the number of people, and this again became the noise, who said, you're not going to find it. Why are you bothering? You may not get a good reception if you do find the village. And it wasn't that they were trying to be mean or they were trying to, dissuade me from doing this because out of my own personal fear. It was just more of their own perspectives of, well, is it really that important? Well, it was important to me to reconnect. It's almost like a challenge that was presented in front of me. Now, so the book Lost and Found, Seeking the Past and Finding Myself, the title is very descriptive of what happened. So lost and found, our village was lost, my identity was lost, and found meaning, finding this village and finding my identity. Seeking the past, in other words, I went to find my ancestral roots with the photograph, and finding myself was about my identity realization. Regarding the identity piece, the way I would describe it is the fact that, my life was growing up as a British-born Canadian, parents from Fiji and grandparents from India, as an Indian dish called a thali. And a thali is a platter with these bowls that are segmented into different areas. So I'm British, Canadian, Indian, and Fijian. And, that's what my life was always segmented before I went to India. Well, eventually, I remember I had an epiphany when I was in India where, this realization happened where instead of looking at my life as a thali, a segmented, platter of these various cultures, I'm actually what we call khichdi. Khichdi is an Indian rice dish that's a blend of flavors and a blend of spices. And that realization happened in India, where instead of trying to segment my life into different areas, instead I'm going to embrace all of these cultures and be all of them, and I can do them simultaneously as well, and have this idea of the khichdi. And the realization is the fact that so many of us are actually khichdi of this blend of cultures and flavors and spices. Regarding the search for the village, it wasn't an easy search. I mean, there were setbacks and obstacles, but I was persistent. And, the information I had received was not accurate. But, I went back to the let's just get to the town that's supposed to be 6 miles. And, eventually, even after asking a lot of people hadn't heard of the village, or why are you looking? And this noise emerging again. I remember that this one person suddenly said, "Oh, the village you're looking for, I think, is up the road this way." So about 6 miles. So we went on this roadway. There's an archway along this way about 6 miles. And there was this one gentleman seated right by the side of the road, an elderly gentleman. And he looked at this picture. And when he looked at this picture, he suddenly was like, "Well, I think I know where this house is." So he gets in our vehicle, but prior to it, this is the same thing that happened all the time, people wanting to help, but not being able to. So I was very guarded. And he gets in our vehicle, this elderly man, and we drive to a house. And he walks up towards this house, and people came out. And I still recall standing there, and he showed the picture to these people. And this one person looked at the picture, and I remember her saying this, "Who are you? This is me in the picture." And I stopped, and I was like, "Wait, did I hear this correct? That's you in the picture?" She was like, "Yeah, that's me in the picture. Who are you?" And I suddenly realized that I had found my grandfather's house with this faded photograph and very limited information. And I love what she said after we realized, the fact that this was our village, is she said, "No, you're home." And it was what I had reconnected, which was a thin thread that basically separated us from not finding it to finding it. And it was a very thin thread. This was my grandfather's brother's family that I was now standing with, that we had been disconnected with from 3 generations. And, I was persistent. And my father had never been to India. I mean, he's elderly. I knew he would never go. He's a paraplegic from an industrial accident. I really wanted to do this for him. So I went with Ziploc bags. I went out into the fields. I scooped up dirt, and I brought the dirt home to him and some of my other extended family members, so that they've got this village, the dirt from our village, the roots, the soil from our village, and that this will connect them back to the past. But I was able to really find, this house amidst all of these obstacles and challenges, but with persistence, there was something that guided me along to accomplish this task. So lost and found, seeking the past and finding myself, I think, is really capturing the essence of that journey to India.
Once again, listen to I'm Focus Radio, talking to Sam Thiara. And yeah, that's why I definitely want to talk about that book, because it ties in exactly everything that we discuss on the show today. Because, I mean, from a picture to motivation to travel and search for closure. And that speaks volumes when you said the woman said you're home. And how did it feel to basically be somewhere that you could have chose to not even travel to go attempt to find. But how did you feel knowing that you actually reached the spot where you have a connection to through your family?
It definitely was one of the most euphoric and, just pinnacle moments in one's life, because, especially, and it was because the odds were totally against me. And at the same point, you start thinking to yourself and you doubt yourself, but you reach down deeper to say, I'm still going to try. Now, there was a very good chance that I would not have found my village. But, and I've had many conversations with people who, have said, well, that's great that you found your village, but you know what? I mean, we're so removed from our ancestors or our ancestral roots that I will never find it. And for example, I was having a conversation with this person who's got an Italian background. And that's what he said. He said, and it's a common piece that I hear is, I'm very happy you found what you were looking for, but I will never find it. And, this person, his background was Sicilian from Italy. And we were talking, and I remember saying, because he said, we don't know anything about that. We're so far removed, and we don't have any connection back to this place called Sicily. And I said, okay, but have you been to Sicily? And he said, well, no, I've been to Sicily. And I said, and he said, but we would never be able to find a house, a town, or any of that stuff. And I said, but when you went to Sicily, did you feel connected to this place? Was there something that just connected you and drew you to this to say, this is where my ancestors are from? And he said, well, absolutely. It really connected with me. And I said, well, you just did the same thing I did. But he wasn't open to that. He figured, well, my ancestors are from here, but that's it. But that connection piece is what we feel within us that draws us to a place and that connects us to a place. I also, when I went, this trip to India was also interesting because it made me realize in all my travels that, there's a tourist and a traveler. A tourist wants to see but not experience. And a traveler just really wants to immerse themselves, learn about the place and the people and the culture and the food. And it made me realize that I'm a traveler, not a tourist. And there's a quote that I'll just quickly read to you that really captured the essence of this. And it says, travel isn't always pretty. It isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it hurts. It even breaks your heart. But that's okay. The journey changes you. It should change you. It leaves marks on your memory, on your consciousness, on your heart, and on your body. You take something with you. Hopefully, you leave something good behind. And that was by Anthony Bourdain. And it really is the essence of when I travel. I think what he really described in it is the fact that it's life-changing. No matter where you go in the world, what you experience, go there to embrace and learn and don't judge. And you'd be amazed at what you will gain and gather in life as a result of being open-minded and being a traveler as opposed to that tourist.
Once again, listen to I'm Focus Radio, talking to Sound Thiara. And speaking of quotes, man, this one that it's always been my favorite all-time quote. And I read this when I was back in high school, sophomore year. And I never stopped reading this quote. And it's by Blaise Pascal. And he said, in faith, there's enough light for those who want to believe and enough shadows to blind those who don't. And I can't help but think you deciding to look for something that for some people, they could easily claim that doesn't exist. And you're just kind of wasting your time to, pursue the idea. I mean, you had an idea to pursue and you did, and you found something. And I think that's something that can be applied to anyone's life. Whatever you pursue, you have to first see it first, that it's possible. Because whether you think it's possible or not. Like Henry Ford said it too.
Mm-hmm.
If you think you can, you can. You think you can't, you're right. Either way, you you slice it. Whatever you decide, what you think you can or can't do, you're right, because you're the one that's the decision maker.
Oh, for sure. I love that quote that you just gave because it speaks such volumes. I mean, there are things that I've attempted to do in life, and it's not that you're going to be successful 100% of the time. But the way I look at it is, if I try, there's even a slight chance that I will be able to accomplish this. But if I don't try it, it's an absolute, you will never accomplish this. And I think I'm not comfortable with the latter, or as I've always said, if you don't try it, you will only have the shadows of what might have been, as opposed to the attempt of trying to get what really might be significant in life. And I think myself, and it sounds like obviously for you as well, going through life, we don't live in those shadows. We light the pathway. And yeah, the wind may blow out the light on occasion and we're back in the dark. But you know what? We've been able to see something that others may not have been able to because they haven't even tried. They haven't lit that candle that will guide them where they need to go.
Man, I don't know about you, but this was an interview that probably can be another 35 minutes, man. But this was very, I guess you say, lighting the candle episode, because I think everything about storytelling and building who you are and finding yourself, learning your culture, but knowing your identity, the most important thing in this world is knowing thyself. Someone famous said that before. But I'm gonna let you have the last words. When people go to your website and they read your books, because you also have another book that people can check out, and that's Personal Storytelling, Discovering the Extraordinary in the Ordinary. When people go to your website, sound-thiara.com, what's some of the things you hope that they'll take away when they decide, okay, this is something I'm going to explore. I'm going to take the shot. I'm going to, so to speak, take the leap of faith and better myself and better my life.
The reason that I guess what I do in life is I share. So on the website, there's about 185 blog posts. All of them are free for people to read and to absorb, whatever may help them. I've been given much in life, but I'm not allowed to hold on to it. I have to give it away. But when I give it away, even more keeps coming back to me. And then I keep giving it away. It's the mindset. And that's why I've chosen not to be a bystander in life. I want to, share my quote that I live by. Everyone's life is an autobiography. Make yours worth reading. We are all living stories, and a need for us to share our respective stories with each other. We grow by learning from each other. And there are times where people feel, well, my story is not significant. Who cares about this? My story, my life. No, you're a living story, and we all have something to share and live in the brilliance of the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Once again, I want to say thank you, Sound Thiara, for not just taking time out of your schedule to talk to us, but just sharing your knowledge and, most importantly, your story. Because I believe that was the highlight for me personally, listening to you talking about your experience, going beyond your comfortable zone, but reaching out to something that can seem impossible to some people.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity, and you're providing a great forum to share. So thank you so much for allowing me an opportunity to share today.
I Am Refocused Radio is brought to you by Foo 4 Star and Holy Crab. Foo 4 Star is a family-owned Asian restaurant in San Antonio, Texas. We have been a local favorite for Asian cuisine for over 10 years. With nothing but full smiles and fast service, you'll be leaving satisfied. Come on in for some authentic Vietnamese food. Holy Crab is one-of-a-kind Cajun Creole-style seafood restaurant located in Universal City, Texas. We offer traditional seafood items as well as chicken and steak, We also offer seafood boils. Come give us a try. You won't be disappointed. You can find these two eateries in Universal City, Texas at 2921 Pat Booker Road.